Part 78. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 771. I instantly understood what Mr. Zhou meant. He wanted Laozi's golden body to turn into nothingness and nourish the mountains and rivers. This way of handling it is quite appropriate. So what do we do? I asked. Mr. Zhou pondered for a moment and said, "You need to do this." Mr. Zhou nodded and replied, "This is the Zanzi Tower, a place where you can observe the heavenly phenomena. Use your qi to attract the purple qi back, so that the golden body can return to heaven and earth and save all sentient beings." I was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay, I'll do it right away." Su Tianxian and I came to the top floor of Zanzi building. Here you can have a panoramic view of the 8 roads and the entire scenery of Hang Pass. "Master, what should I do?" I didn't know how to do it, so I could only ask Su Tianxian. Su Tianxian pondered for a moment, raised his head to gaze at the stars, and said, "With your current qi, it is impossible to cause changes in the heaven and earth, let alone the purple qi coming from the east. For the time being, I will divide my own qi into 1 and 2, and then set up a qi gathering array. This will cause changes in the heaven and earth, and the purple qi will come from the east." Su Tianxian did this before in Yin Yang Ghost Town, and it was precisely because of her qi that I was able to defeat the green ghost. Su Tianxian stopped talking and began to set up the formation, while I was condescending, overlooking the entire Hang Pass. At this moment, I suddenly discovered something strange. There was a huge amount of yin qi coming from the direction due east. The yin qi is mixed with a strong evil spirit. I frowned, a bad feeling rising in my heart. Wait, not only the direction due east, but also other directions are filled with yin energy. The powerful yin qi dispersed the darkness of night, rendering the entire world lifeless. The ink-colored darkness swallowed up the bright moon and stars, leaving no trace of light. Terror, despair, shrouded the entire world. Immediately afterwards, melodious bugle sounds echoed in the mountains. The sound lingered in my heart like a curse. Countless black shadows moved through the mountains and forests, and the sound of uniform footsteps struck my nerves. I know Zhao Mian took action. The entire Hang Pass war spirit is controlled by the 4 general gods he refined. Once thousands of yin soldiers surround Zanzi Tower, we will have no choice but to wait for death. At this moment, I suddenly saw a figure walking towards the direction of Zanzi Tower. The outline of the figure is very familiar to me, it seems to be General Huo. How could he come here? Are you here to kill me? Or is there another purpose? Master, look. General Huo is here. Su Tianxian put down what he was doing and came to my side, looking at the figure. The expression on her face did not change much. "Xiao Su, please invite him into Zanzi Tower and don't let him conflict with Zhong Kui." I nodded and quickly ran towards the bottom of the building. When I arrived on the first floor, I felt an extremely powerful aura erupting from the direction of the door. I looked shocked and shouted to Zhong Kui, "Judge Zhong. I know him. Don't hurt the harmony of my family." I quickly stood in front of Zhong Kui. The extremely powerful aura just now was released by Zhong Kui. If I had come a step later, I'm afraid the two of them would have taken action. Huo Qubing looked at me coldly, without any emotion on his face. "General Huo, what are you doing here? Could it be that you want to compete with me?" Huo Qubing said calmly, "I'm not here for you, but for my former subordinates." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 772. Former subordinate. I think they were the Han Dynasty's undercover soldiers lingering at Hang Pass. I stepped aside, made an invitation gesture, and said, "Please come in." Huo Qubing walked into it. Zhong Kui looked far into the distance, his expression gradually becoming serious. "Boy, someone is going to target you. I'm afraid you will be in trouble this time." I smiled bitterly and said, there is nothing we can do about this. Zhao Mian is targeting me. I can't let him stop the war and let me solve the matter of my golden body first, right? Zhong Kui turned around, looked at me, and said, I will guard here until your matter is over. As long as I am here, no ghost will dare to enter. I raised my hands to Zhong Kui and said gratefully, thank you very much. I am very grateful to Zhong Kui. For him to be able to help me guard Zanzi Tower here is considered to be the most benevolent thing. Zhong Kui also made it very clear that as long as he waits for my matter to be resolved, he will leave here. I won't interfere with what happens next. However, this is enough. Zhong Kui waved his hand, signaling me not to take this matter to heart. I took Huo Qubing to the top floor. Su Tianqian is still setting up the formation. Huo Qubing looked far into the distance with a gloomy expression. He turned around and said to me, let's put aside the matter between you and me for now. I wonder if you can find a way to solve the current predicament. I thought for a moment and replied, I know you are here for your former subordinates, but you have to know that your subordinates are my subordinates. I can't just watch their souls disappear. Oh? What do you mean? My eyes were full of determination and I replied, I want them to become my subordinates again and treat them as kings. Be used by me. After hearing this, Huo Qubing raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing an imperceptible smile. It seems you have great ambitions. I waved my hand and said, ambition, if I didn't have ambition, I wouldn't be where I am today. Huo Qubing hesitated for a moment and replied, this time, I will help you, and I don't want to see my former subordinates disappear. The alliance between Huo Qubing and I has been reached. Time passes by 1 second. Thousands of Yin soldiers have come to Zanzi Tower from the mountains and forests. Looking around, there are densely packed Yin soldiers wearing armor. I think this is what it would have been like to have thousands of troops marching for war in ancient times. Among these dark soldiers, I saw Zhao Mian. He was accompanied by 4 generals, Shensha. These 4 Shensha obeyed Zhao Mian's orders, while the Yin soldiers obeyed the general Shensha. Now, Zhao Mian has truly commanded the entire Yin soldiers in Hang Pass. However, what makes me a little confused is that with such power, why would he choose to come here? To kill me? Or rob me of my golden body? Zhao Mian looked up at me, raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth, and said, Lu Su, I want to see how you deal with me today. His voice was not loud, but it reached my ears clearly. Huo Qubing scanned the crowd of Yin soldiers, and finally settled on a group of Yin soldiers wearing Han Dynasty armor. He frowned and said to me, I originally thought that my strength could awaken the minds of these soldiers, but now it seems that my thinking was too simple. I looked at Huo Qubing and asked doubtfully, isn't he relying on the gods to indirectly command the Yin soldiers? These Yin soldiers have feelings for you, and they will definitely recognize you as long as you speak. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 773. What you said is good, but the facts don't allow me to do this. Huo Qubing stretched out his hand, pointed at the thousands of troops and horses downstairs, and said, the alchemist has carved a mark on the souls of these Yin soldiers. Unless he kills the 4 evil spirits, or uses the absolute awe-inspiring energy to engulf the souls, only when the mark is removed can they regain their sanity. I frowned. Things are becoming increasingly unpredictable. At this time, Su Tianqian came to me and said, the Qi gathering formation is set up, and I will tell you how to break the situation. Su Tianqian called me aside and told me the key to breaking the situation. After hearing this, I asked with some uncertainty, is this really okay? Su Tianqian nodded slightly and said softly, Xiao Su, I believe in you, so you must also believe in yourself." As she spoke, she stretched out her green-white jade fingers and gently touched my forehead. Immediately afterwards, I felt a breath of energy that didn't belong to me pour into my body. I took a deep breath and looked at the thousands of troops downstairs in Zanzi. Zhao Mian also lost his patience. He waved his hand, and the 4 generals roared in unison. "Kill!" Countless Yin soldiers rushed towards Zanzi Tower. The strong Yin Qi pressure makes people breathless. Huo Qubing said to me, "I will stop them and buy you some time." I nodded at him and said, "Thank you." Huo Qubing didn't say anything. He jumped down from the Zanzi Tower, which was more than 10 meters high, and then landed steadily. After landing, Huo Qubing erupted with a terrifying aura, instantly intimidating thousands of troops. He slowly drew out the sword from his waist, and his aura increased again. Huo Qubing holds a long sword in his hand. He has a majestic figure and extraordinary momentum. He has the tendency to retreat even though there are thousands of people. This scene made me tremble with fear. I had long known that Huo Qubing was powerful, but I didn't expect him to be so powerful. This is the generation of war god Huo Qubing who established in history why the Huns were still alive. History books once commented on Huo Qubing like this: "The champions of the Hussars are many brave, they drive 6 times, they are struck by lightning, they drink from the sea of horses, they seal the wolves to live in the mountains, they draw the rivers to the west, and the counties pray for a generation." This shows how powerful Huo Qubing was at that time. Having Huo Qubing help me can also give me more time to prepare. I took out the celestial talisman, kneaded the spell in my hand, and muttered something. Following my movements, the celestial talisman in my hand slowly floated into the air, suddenly emitting a beam of dazzling white light. The white light shoots straight into the sky and echoes with the stars in the sky. The stars penetrate the dark clouds and appear between the sky and the earth again. I stood in the Qi gathering formation, looking down at the thousands of troops and horses below me, with the stars behind me. I summoned the 8 heavenly secrets and drew the thunder talisman. 8 talismans emitting golden light surrounded me. I squeezed the 9 layers of thunder dew seal with my hand and summoned the heart sword. The thunder dew took shape in my hand, and my sword pointed at the sky. With the blessing of the lightning drawing talisman and the energy gathering array, I superimposed the power of the 9-level thunder technique to the 6th level. Everything I did was to attract extremely powerful thunder to scare these evil soldiers. If this powerful thunder falls, it will not cause much damage to such a large number of Yin soldiers. Moreover, my purpose is to take these underworld soldiers under my command. As for the purpose of using the celestial talisman just now, it is to reveal the stars in the sky, so that I can use my own energy as a guide to summon the vision of heaven and earth with purple energy coming from the east. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 774. I looked at the frowns hovering in the sky, feeling like something was almost missing. Zhao Mian's joking voice rang in my ears. "Lu Su, your ideas are too naive. Do you think that this level of Tianli wants to break the situation? Stop joking." I looked at Zhao Mian, raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth, and said, "My strength is not far behind this." I freed up my other hand and picked up the divine art. After a while, Lu Hangxuan's voice sounded in my mind. "Lu Su, what's wrong?" Lu Hangxuan's voice was still so gentle, just like the gentle breeze caressing people's hearts in the mountains. "I need your help." Lu Hangxuan didn't say much and just lent me her strength. For a moment, the strength in my body surged, and a terrifying aura emanated from my body. I have never felt so powerful. But I know that this strength is only temporary. Because this power does not belong to me. I stacked Thunder Dew again, stacking it up to the 9th level. Boom! A bolt of lightning pierced the dense black clouds and the silent night sky, like breaking a round mirror, causing it to fall into pieces. I took a deep breath and released the crepe myrtle energy in my body. The lavender mist shot straight into the sky, intertwined with thunder and lightning clouds, and the scene in front of us was magnificent and gorgeous. I looked back at Su Tianqian and saw her nodding slightly towards me. This action boosted my confidence, as if I could do anything with her by my side. I took a deep breath, looked at the thousands of troops in front of me, and said loudly, "Everything in the world is under my control." My voice exploded across the sky and earth along with the roaring thunder. With the blessing of Su Tianqian and Lu Hangxuan's breath, my voice is as loud as a bell and my momentum is powerful. I never thought my momentum would reach such a terrifying level. The thousands of troops and horses under me were intimidated by my momentum, and they all stopped in place and refused to move forward. Zhao Mian raised his head and looked at me seriously. I glanced in the direction due east, and saw that in the boundless night, that side had been shrouded in mist emitting purple light. It seems that I succeeded. I said sharply again, "Use my true energy to combine with the creation of heaven and earth." My face froze, and I released the Zaiwei Qi in my body again, shouting loudly, "Purple Qi is coming from the east." Boom! There were bursts of thunder in the sky, and a majestic aura came from the east, came to me in an instant, and enveloped the entire world. The blue thunder also turned purple at this moment, ravaging the sky and tearing apart the darkness. Mr. Zhou and others who were on the first floor of Zanzi building saw the natural phenomenon and said in surprise, This was caused by Lu Su." Sudden. Lao Zi's golden body suddenly burst out with a dazzling light. This beam of light shot straight into the sky, and I, who was on the top floor, also saw this beam of light. Immediately afterwards, I felt this beam of light slowly spreading into my body, and its power was increasing rapidly. Zhao Mian's tone became very cold. "Lu Su, I have to say that you are very capable, but how can you deal with thousands of troops by yourself?" Zhao Mian raised his hand and dropped it hard, and the four generals roared again. Countless Yin soldiers seemed to be going crazy and rushed towards Zanzi Tower. I looked at everything in front of me coldly. The next thing to do is to expel the marks from the souls of these Yin soldiers. I breathed a sigh of relief and pointed my sword at the sky. If I want these Yin soldiers to completely surrender to me, I must show some strength. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 775. The purple sky thunders hovering in the sky gathered more and more, and the night sky seemed to be torn open with cracks. Within the cracks lies endless darkness and nothingness. I took a deep breath, looked at Zhao Mian, and said word for word, "Zhao Mian, you have ignored one thing from beginning to end." Lu Su. I am not a young boy. Nor am I just a pawn in your chess game. Zhao Mian looked at me coldly, his eyes filled with gloominess under the mask. I swear this in the name of Zaiwei. Build Qi to control the dragon veins of the 9 provinces. Defend my original intention and protect the peace of the world. After this sword, the evil spirits will retreat and all the soldiers will surrender. Without any hesitation, I pointed my sword at the sky to attract thunder. I headed towards Zhan Zi downstairs and ordered one of them fiercely. Boom! The purple thunder dragon descended due to the sound, swallowing thousands of soldiers, and everywhere it looked was a purple light. The powerful force makes the mountains and rivers tremble, and all things surrender. As the thunder fell, I felt that all the strength in my body was instantly drained, my legs softened, and I fell to the side. If it weren't for Su Tianxuan's support, I might have collapsed to the ground. The purple thunder dragon ravaged the world, and after the thunder, the world returned to peace. I looked downstairs at Zanzi, and saw that the thousands of troops and horses had not diminished at all. Faced with this situation, I didn't feel the slightest panic in my heart. The sword strike just now was mixed with Zaiwei's luck. I didn't want to hurt these Yin soldiers, but I wanted to use the sword to expel the mark that Zhao Mian had engraved on their souls. From beginning to end, I never wanted to kill these underworld soldiers. Because there are simply too many yin soldiers, and it is impossible to kill them all. There is purple mist floating in the night sky, and the whole night is beautiful. The yin soldiers also regained their consciousness because of my sword. They looked around blankly, and some yin soldiers focused their attention on Huo Qubing. With surprised faces on their faces, they hurriedly came to Huo Qubing's body, knelt down on one knee, clasped their fists with both hands, and shouted in unison, "General!" Huo Qubing looked a little excited. He waved his hand and said, "Everyone, get up." When Zhao Mian saw this scene, his face became more and more gloomy, and he waved his hand to a general beside him. A terrifying evil spirit erupted from General Shenche's body. The expressions on the more than 1,000 Han Dynasty Yin soldiers standing in front of Huo Qubing began to look strange. Their eyes were distracted and their eyes began to become numb. Huo Qubing's expression condensed and he took a step forward. It was at this step that Huo Qubing's aura surged, directly dispelling the evil spirit, and the Yin soldiers of the Han Dynasty returned to normal. It seems that without the brand, Zhao Mian cannot control these evil soldiers at all. Zhao Mian looked up at me and said in a gloomy voice, "I didn't expect you to have such a method, but do you think this can break the situation?" A general's evil spirit lost its original function, so Zhao Mian destroyed it without hesitation and distributed the power of this evil spirit to the other three. Zhao Mian said coldly, Me. Restricted by the gods of these three generals, the Yin soldiers lost their minds again and attacked Zanzi Tower like crazy. Seeing this, I was exhausted and took out the tiger talisman from my pocket. Then he raised his head high and shouted at the thousands of True. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 776. When the Yin soldiers of the Qin dynasty saw the tiger talisman in my hand, their expressions were shocked, and a look of respect immediately appeared on their faces. They all knelt down. "Welcome, my king." The sound was as powerful as a bell, resounding throughout the world, echoing throughout the mountains and forests, startling every bird. The Yin soldiers of the four dynasties have already solved 2 dynasties, and I already have a plan in mind for the next 2. Zhao Mian's eyes were spitting fire and he roared at me, "When did you find this tiger talisman?" I looked at him coldly and didn't answer him. I looked around and said sternly, "You have only 2 choices. The first is to submit to me. The second is to lose your soul." As soon as these words came out, the remaining Yin soldiers faced me with disdain and overwhelming Yin energy. "Who are you? Do you want me to submit to you? You want to be our king? You don't have the ability. You want to be our king? You don't just have to pay lip service." All kinds of doubtful voices rang in my ears. I had expected this scene. The army is a place where the weak prey on the strong, and strength is paramount. As long as you have absolute strength, you can make these underworld soldiers regard you as their king. Seeing that the time was almost up, I took out the soul-locking tower and released Xin Tian. The moment Xin Tian appeared, the mighty yin qi downstairs of Zhan Zi was instantly suppressed. Zhao Mian's pupils trembled violently and he said in disbelief, "Xin Tian." Xin Tian looked at me, and I nodded at him. I had told Xin Tian my plan long ago. He was also happy to help me with this favor. Xin Tian held a giant axe in his hand and glanced at all the Yin soldiers downstairs in Zanzi with his cold eyes. The aura suppression from the god of war made all the Yin soldiers feel like deflated rubber balls, and they did not dare to say anything. In full view of everyone, Xin Tian raised his hands to me and said respectfully, "Your Majesty." I was slightly startled. This was a little different from what I had planned before. I just told Xin Tian to come forward and scare these underworld soldiers. But I never expected that he would actually call me king. This makes me a little flattered. However, Xing Tian's expression made me a little confused. He didn't seem to be acting, but he truly regarded me as his king. I don't know if this is my illusion or what. Anyway, Xing Tian's expression made me unable to find any flaws. I nodded slightly. Xing Tian turned around, looked down at the Yin soldiers downstairs, and said sternly, "When the emperor is angry, millions of corpses will be buried. You have only one choice: surrender to my king. If not, your soul will be shattered." These two sentences hit my heart directly, and their momentum was so powerful that it was daunting. All the Yin soldiers present lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. Zhao Mian looked at me solemnly. He raised his hand and controlled the remaining 3 generals to attack Zanzi Tower. A cold look flashed in Xing Tian's eyes. He jumped directly from Zanzi Tower and landed heavily with a bang. Without any hesitation, he raised the giant axe in his hand and swung it forward lightly. The 3 generals were cut in half instantly. "Let's see who dares to step forward." Xing Tian slammed the giant axe in his hand onto the ground. All the Yin soldiers subconsciously took a step back. Seeing that the situation was under my control, I walked down from the top of Zanzi Tower. Zhao Mian and I confronted each other coldly. "You lose." Zhao Mian also looked at me coldly and asked, "Oh? Did I lose? Why do you believe that what is happening now is not in my plan?" Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 777. Zhao Mian's appearance of being confident of victory made me feel very uncomfortable. "If you have any other tricks, use them." Zhao Mian shrugged and said casually, "I've had enough fun, it's time for me to leave." "I want to leave." "Have you left?" As soon as I finished speaking, I raised my sword and stabbed Zhao Mian. Zhao Mian didn't hide, he just stood there quietly. When the heart sword pierced his chest, I was dumbfounded. The heart sword passed directly through his body, but it was like penetrating a virtual projection. This is not his real body. Zhao Mian said jokingly, "Lu Su, we will meet again." Finally, he set his sights on Su Tianqian and said, "Your time is running out, so cherish it." Starting from his feet, Zhao Mian's body turned into little stars and disappeared into the air. My face turned extremely ugly. These words came out again. What on earth is Su Tianqian hiding from me? Now is not the time to ask these questions, it is better to receive these underworld soldiers under my command as soon as possible. I looked at these evil soldiers coldly and asked in a cold voice, "Will you surrender to me?" These shady soldiers looked at me and I looked at you, and finally shouted in unison, "We are willing to make you king. We will listen to your orders." I was so happy that I summoned the sea of ghosts and ghosts. The inky darkness gathered behind me, eventually forming a huge wave. The netherworld ghost sea can carry Yin soldiers, otherwise Yin soldiers would not be summoned. As for the nature of the netherworld ghost sea, I still don't know. I stepped aside and said, "Go in, from now on, you will be my subordinates. No matter what happens, as long as I am here, I will protect you." "Yes." The Yin soldiers began to rehearse neatly and entered the sea of ghosts. I roughly counted that the number of these Yin soldiers has exceeded 10,000. To be specific, it is around 30,000. In the end, only Huo Qubing and his men were left on the field. I looked at Huo Qubing and said, "Take your men and leave here." Huo Qubing shook his head at me and said, "I just want to know that they are safe, and you are their real king." I was slightly startled, hearing that Huo Qubing meant to give these Yin soldiers to me. The Yin soldiers behind Huo Qubing and Chang Zhen waved their hands and said, "Go. Continue to serve your king." These Yin soldiers looked at Huo Qubing and asked, "General, aren't you with us?" Huo Qubing shook his head and replied, "He and I still have things to deal with, so you go ahead." The Yin soldiers of the Han dynasty did not ask any more questions and entered the Sea of Ghosts. At this time, Xin Tian came to me, looked up at the sky, and said, "I'm leaving." I turned to look at him and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, if it weren't for me, you would still be able to linger in this world." Xin Tian waved his hand and replied nonchalantly, "It's okay. It was you who awakened my numb heart. By the way, the female ghost in the tower will not hurt you anymore. You can release her." I was slightly taken aback. Wouldn't the green shooting ghost be hurting me? As soon as Xin Tian finished speaking, a golden light penetrated the clouds in the night sky and shone directly on Xin Tian's body. Immediately afterwards, his figure disappeared. "Lu Su, when you know everything, we will meet again, and I will be on your side then." Xin Tian's voice became farther and farther away, and finally disappeared completely. His body also turned into golden light, rising straight into the sky. I know that this ray of his soul has returned to his true body. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 778. Huo Qubing came to me and said, "I said, I will give you time to grow. When the time comes, you can defeat me in an upright manner, and I will treat you as king again." I nodded and replied, "I believe that day won't be long." Huo Qubing looked at me deeply, turned around and walked into the darkness without saying anything else. Watching Huo Qubing leave, I clenched my fists. No matter what happens in the future, getting stronger is the first thing I do. Su Tianqian and I returned to Zanzi Tower. My golden body had begun to dissipate at this moment, turning into little stars and blending into the night. Zhong Kui stepped forward and said, "The task assigned to me has been completed and I am leaving." I raised my hands to Zhong Kui and said, "Thank you for your help." Zhong Kui waved his hand and said, "It's just a little effort." I didn't expect that the kid Zhong Zhenling talked about would grow to such an extent. "It's very good, very good." Zhong Kui's brows were filled with admiration for me. I smiled and didn't say thank you again. Xiang Yi came to me and said jokingly, "Boy, you are awesome. You just accepted 30,000 yin soldiers like this? With these troops in your hand, at least you are a city god." I smiled and said, "Then I, the ghost agent, have become the city god. What will you do, the ghost agent? Or you can work for me as an agent." Xiang Yi rolled his eyes and raised his hand as if to hit me. "You're farting on me." He looked stern and whispered in my ear, "I heard that the Shenxia Ghost Emperor has been plotting the Yin soldiers at Hang Pass. You should be careful to prevent him from stumbling behind his back." I nodded and said, "I understand. Please go back and tell Emperor Fengdu that I have completed what he told me. It's just some deviations from what was agreed before, but it's harmless. He will definitely be able to accept it. Emperor Fengdu is no better than the divine T. I can see his kindness towards me. But Shenxia is different, he wants me to die. Don't worry, I will tell the Emperor. If you have any trouble in the future, contact me and I will help you, but you have to pay." The corners of my mouth twitched slightly and I asked, "Dear Mr. Xiang, has the ghost money I gave you last time been spent again? This is really a poor guy who spends money like water." Xiang Yi chuckled and said, "There is nothing we can do about this." I changed the topic and asked, "Your Majesty Mu Qing is the daughter of Emperor Fengdu. She must be very rich. Why don't you consider whether to be a pretty girl?" Xiang Yi glared at me fiercely and said angrily, "Don't mention that savage woman." After that, he stopped leaving me and left here with Zhong Kui and He Vuqiang. Now there are only 3 people left in Zanzi Tower, me, Su Tianqian, and Mr. Zhou. Of course, there are also Subaru Chicken and Xiao He. I took out the sun and moon beads from the corpse coffin. Xiao He quickly came up and said, "Boss, you must be tired, let me give you a shoulder squeeze." I gave it a stern look and said, "Do you have any hands?" No. Don't worry, I will do what I promised you. This sun and moon pearl is yours. Xiao He thanked him profusely. The coffin can only be kept here for the time being. No one comes here on weekdays. When we go back, Mr. Joe will find a way to get this coffin back home. The three of us left here and rushed towards the Joe family. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 779. After returning to Joe's house, it didn't take long for the sun to break. Su Tianqian and I did not stop here, but bought high-speed rail tickets and returned to Tianfu City. As for Xiaohei and Subaru Chicken, they checked in their pets. Pleiades Chicken claimed that staying in Hang Pass was too boring and wanted to go out with me to see the world. Xiaohei can fly, but this guy said he doesn't want to fly anymore. He was very tired when he flew to mission last time. At noon, we returned to Jiyuntang. Pushing open the door of Jiyuntang, what came into view was Miao Fengluan's innocent and pretty face. Lu Su, you are finally back. Miao Fengluan was very surprised and took my hand. I smiled and said, I made you worry. Every time I go out to do errands, Miao Fengluan will wait quietly in Jiyun Hall. Where's Huaxiu? I asked. Miao Fengling glanced in the direction of the second floor and said, she has been sleeping since she came back. I nodded, wondering how long it would take for Huaxiu to evolve from a 1,000-year zombie to an immortal bone. But it's not that easy to think about. At night, I brought back Xiaohei and Subaru Chicken. I handed the Sun and Moon Pearl to Xiaohei, who held the Sun and Moon Pearl and began to absorb the essence of the Sun and Moon. As for the Pleiades Chicken, he stayed in Jiyuntang. I don't know why, but mythical beasts like Xiaohei and Pleiades Chicken love Miao Fengluan very much. This chicken has been following Miao Fengluan since he came to Jiyuntang. Su Tianqian called me to the roof. Her beautiful eyes stared closely at the starry sky. Master, what's the matter? Su Tianqian looked back, looked at me quietly and said, I will go with you to deal with the situation in the land of the four evils, and we will set off tomorrow. I was slightly stunned and asked, Master, have you found the place of the four evils? Su Tianqian nodded and replied, I found it. Zhang Yacheng doesn't know where the four evil spirits are. We must break them one by one. If he absorbs all the evil spirits, the consequences will be disastrous. I nodded. After being delayed for such a long time at Hang Pass, it was time to set out to resolve the grievances between Zhang Yacheng and me. Then Master, where should we go tomorrow? Xiangzi. Su Tianqian said lightly. Okay, I get it. I looked at Su Tianxuan's beautiful face, hesitated for a moment, and asked, Master, what are you hiding from me? I hope you can tell me, your disciple, and we can face it together. Su Tianqian was the same as before, with no emotion on her face. She turned around and looked up at the stars in the sky without saying a word. Master, you. When I saw Su Tianqian like this, I knew I couldn't ask anything else. I sighed deeply and returned to my room. When I went to bed at night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was in the underworld, and standing in front of me was Divine T. I know, this is the dream given to me by the Divine T. He looked at me coldly and asked, I heard that you took the 30,000 yin soldiers from Hang Pass under your own command. I knew Shencha would know about this matter, but I didn't expect that he would find out so quickly. We have to face it sooner or later anyway, so we might as well make it clear this time. I nodded and said, that's right. Shencha's face became even colder, and he said word by word, I'll give you a chance to hand over your 30,000 yin soldiers to me, otherwise. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 780. Before Shencha could finish speaking, I interrupted him. Master Shencha, you don't need to threaten me. Since I dare to take this dark soldier as my own against your will, I have already thought about the consequences. As soon as these words came out, the yin energy around Shencha surged, and a strong sense of oppression came towards me. Although this was in my dream, the oppressive feeling brought to me by the divine tea was real and fatal. I pretended to be calm, looked at him coldly, and said, I can see that this yin soldier is very important to you. You can kill me now, but those 30,000 yin soldiers will not obey orders you. The yin soldiers voluntarily entered the ghost sea, and their souls were imprinted by me. Even if they don't bear the mark, they won't take orders from anyone but me. Because I am their king. I continued, the best place for these yin soldiers is in my hands. Do you know what Emperor Fengdu said to me before you made your request to me? When Shencha heard the words Fengdu Emperor, his expression froze and he asked, what did you say? I looked at Shencha with a smile and said, he said the same thing as you. Shencha became very ugly, lowering his eyes and not knowing what he was thinking. I continued, Master Shencha, this yin soldier is better in my hands than in the hands of Emperor Fengdu, right? If you need my help, I can still help. Once this yin soldier falls to Fengdu, in the Emperor's hands, do you think you still have this chance? This is the capital I use to negotiate with Shencha. I alone cannot shake his inner thoughts. Emperor Fengdu must be moved out. Of course, between Emperor Fengdu and Shencha, my heart naturally favors Emperor Fengdu. Shencha took a deep look at me and said, boy, you surprised me. Since things have happened and cannot be changed, it doesn't matter if this yin soldier is in your hands, but you have to promise me that if I use this yin soldier, you must help me. I smiled and said, that's natural, but if I'm in trouble, Master Shencha, you must help me. Shencha narrowed his eyes, understood my thoughts instantly, and said, okay. There is bound to be a battle between me and the city god. And the ambition of the city god is the entire underworld. Shencha looked at me deeply and disappeared into my dream. I woke up with a start, gasping for air. Although I was calm in the dream just now, only I knew how difficult the conversation with Shencha was. Because the sense of oppression emanating from Shencha was simply too strong. I took a breath and lay back on the bed again. The grudge between me and Shencha can only be said to be resolved briefly. We will face it again later. The most important thing now is to find the land of the four evil spirits and crack the feng shui of the four evil spirits. I got up at dawn the next morning, packed up, and planned to head to western Hunan with Su Tianxian. Xiao He naturally stayed in Jiyuntang. He said to me, boss, I won't go with you. Maybe I can transform when you come back. It's a good thing that Xiao He can transform, so I didn't stop him. Just when we were about to leave, Miao Fengluan came to me, lowered his eyes and said, Lu Su, I also want to go with you. I am familiar with Xiangzi, and I can help you. I glanced at Su Tianxian, who nodded. Okay, then you can come with us. In this way, the three of us headed to Xiangzi.